friendly with Jay-Z, right? You guys play fantasy football together and stuff. So the next time he's doing a concert, you're there front row. Why don't you just go up on stage while he's going and just go massage his shoulders? I'm sure he'll be comfortable with that.
There have been plenty of artists that I've gone to their concerts and I've stood on stage and I've actually held microphones and recited the rap lyrics with them.
Excuse us.
Better than a massage.
Who among
Give us some bars.
You know what I mean?
Give us some bars.
Anyway,
I'm so disappointed
DMX.
in you. I'm so disappointed in you.
He's never going to get over it.
You ain't
He's mad.
massaging.
We have disagreement on
Is
a
that
variety.
spontaneous or was that arranged?
It all depends on who the fan is.
Stop.
Let me say welcome back to Get Up, coming to you live from the Seaport District at Pier 17. It's brought to you by Chase, and we have a big hour coming your way. We're going to get up first and foremost with Kevin Dyrant. He's watching, he's waiting, he's wondering, as we all are, about the league's best scorer and his future, short-term and long. We've got answers right off the bat. Plus, the D in Big D stands for Dak and decisions. Are the Cowboys sold on their quarterback? And if they aren't, what do they do? Plus, you've heard Jalen Rose's reaction to the hiring of his former teammate, Juwan Howard at Michigan. What are the implications now for the program and college basketball as a whole? We'll talk about that and more. Let's get up, starting right now. Juwan Howard, as mentioned, one of the famous Fab Five, has reached agreement with Michigan on a 5-year contract to become the school's next head coach. Howard had been an assistant with the Miami Heat. He replaces John Beilein, who left for the NBA to become the coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers. And as we bring it out here, I hope that all of you had a chance to be with us about a half hour ago as Jalen reacted in great detail and depth to sort of your emotions at this, which is obviously, it's a day that is for those of us, first and foremost, who know you, but really I think all basketball fans old enough to remember the Fab Five. This is a day that is about more than the basketball piece. And we covered that, and we'll get all of that up on all our social media channels for you if you missed it. Let us have a conversation now, however, about the basketball piece of this, because it is an interesting one. This has been a top-level program. They've done as much winning as any school in the Big Ten over the last roughly decade or so, including 2 national championship games. How, and I'll turn to you first, Seth, on this one here again, as one who covers college basketball for us every single day of the year. How does this now impact the Big Ten and college basketball as a whole?
Well, I think it's going to be a process, how it's going to impact. Think about John Beilein. Over the last 5 years, he's won more NCAA tournament games than any coach in the country. He's tied with a guy named K. He has a symbol. Like, I don't know what Drake has. He's a symbol. It's just K, a letter.
Right.
John Calipari, all right, John Beilein, and Roy Williams. That's how many games they've won. So he's walking into a situation where there is a culture of winning. Now, obviously, what he's walking into, he represents something that's very different. His ability now to understand the business of college basketball. Coaching will not be a problem. He's paid an incredible apprenticeship. He understands culture. You talk about culture. He comes from the best culture in all of the NBA. And he's been trained and coached by Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra. They understand how to create a winning environment. What the challenge for him is going to be in terms of college basketball and getting Michigan to where you guys want it to be, a national championship team, is understanding the business of college basketball. Because the business of college basketball is different than the business of the NBA. So he has to hire the right staff, not to help him coach, the right staff to have him navigate the day-to-day operations of a college basketball program, which is very different. He needs an experienced former head coach or an experienced assistant to help him navigate that aspect. The coaching will not be an issue.
I talked about this last week. I just felt like he was the right man for the job at the right time. And I want to make sure that people understand, yes, John Beilein did an amazing job of winning when he was there. But he didn't get fired. He got a raise.
Yeah.
He left.
True.
He got rewarded for what you just said by the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are going to probably pay him $5 million a year to coach basketball. So that chapter is closed. Yep. Okay, Juwan now coming in, you have to look at a blank canvas and say, he's an alum. He's a former great player. And so many times people try to hold the fact that a player doesn't have coaching experience. It doesn't mean that just because you played, just like working in the media, that you should be able to coach. However, if you have played and you coached, that's a wealth of experience that cannot be measured.
Here's what I think people want to know, which is, people associate the Fab Five as being sort of the beginning of a new era of college sports, and to some degree they were, but none of you guys are one and done. Weber stayed 2 years, you stayed 3 years, Dyrant stayed 3 years.
Correct.
Michigan has not been in the one and done business. John Beilein has recruited. I had this conversation with him at Dick Vitale's gala last year. He gets the next level of great player. They stay. He's able to coach them and make them better. Do you think Michigan gets into the one and done business now with Juwan there?
I do, but that business is about to change in a couple of years. That's why this is an important hire for them, Greeny, because a lot of those Zion Williamson type prospects and R.J. Barrett, they're going to be going straight to the league.
Well, is that definitely happening?
That is going to happen.
Soon?
22, right?
I think it's going to happen within the next couple of years. It's going to be the Bronny rule. Whenever Bronny come out,
okay,
he's going to be able to possibly go right to the league.
You know, the one thing they got to do, and I told you this earlier, they've got to bring the Fab Five back to life. They need to get the best social media person humanly possible, take all that great footage and tell the story of what you guys did to college basketball. And every single day, they should have something on social media building up to their first game.
Okay, let's move on to other things here again. This obviously is a very big story, and I want to reiterate, if you didn't see Jalen's reaction to it in our first hour, we'll get it up on all of our social media because there was a lot there. In the meantime, there's also a lot to unpack with the Golden State Warriors. We didn't even get to this in our first hour because everyone started yelling and I lost control. No story right now looms larger over Golden State than the status of Kevin Durant's calf and the status of his mindset. The Warriors say they're optimistic he will return during the finals. No KD, no problem so far. Golden State's won all 5 games he missed, and they won the game that he came out of, which was close, Game 5 against Houston. And they've done it largely because Steph Curry has been unbelievable, and now they have 9 days off before the NBA Finals will begin, either in Milwaukee or Toronto a week from tonight. Now, we mentioned earlier briefly that Kevin Durant was involved in social media disputes. We've seen this from him before. He now has gotten into it with Chris Broussard, who works at Fox Sports and was our colleague here at ESPN for a long time. There's what Chris Broussard tweeted. He tweeted, "Katie and I have a love-hate relationship. We've texted for 2-3 hours straight about life, basketball, media, faith. KD has gone at me much harder privately. We make a living critiquing athletes. It would be hypocritical of us not to be able to take it." KD responded, as you see, cap, you don't have my number, suggesting that he's making all this up. Cap means he's lying. And Kevin Durant then tweeted the third tweet we just put up there. He actually tweeted at someone else who has 155 followers. So Kevin Durant is getting into it both with Chris Broussard on the national media stage and then with just fans out there who are trolling him and getting it on with him. I will say this briefly, and then I want to turn it over to you, and we'll turn it into a bigger conversation. I've known Chris Broussard for 15 years, and Chris came out and said that the distinction he's making is that the exchanges were on DM as opposed to text. I will merely say this, and obviously I can't say this with certainty. I don't know it. I haven't seen the exchanges. I find it impossible to believe that Chris Broussard would say that he and KD have had lengthy exchanges if that were not true. So I stand with Chris Broussard to that extent. The context of the conversations, the content of them, obviously I cannot speak to. But I stand with Chris Broussard to that level at least. Having said that, what do you make of the notion that here is KD, he's mixing it up with a very high-profile media member, and he's mixing it up with a guy on Twitter who has 155 followers,
KD is changing the game in a different way because we've never seen somebody so very talented and so very accomplished, yet it seems like they're still uncomfortable in their own skin and looking for validation from the public, and they're chasing after it to try to form a narrative to the point where they always argue for themselves. We talked in the past about him creating burner accounts when he basically was trashing the OKC situation. Russell Westbrook, Billy Donovan. Now he's just doing it from his main account. And the one thing I will say is, of course, as an athlete, of course, as somebody that has a voice, you have the opportunity to clap back anytime you feel like somebody putting some disrespect on your name. But there is a term called beefing down, and he does it way too much. And this is why we have a reigning back-to-back finals MVP that all season we've talked about him leaving Golden State. Just think about that. We're talking about allegedly the best player leaving the best team, and none of us are surprised. Why? Because we've seen this behavior from him that whether they win a championship, whether people are saying how great he is, it seems like he's not going to be satisfied until he's the best player on a team that has this level of success.
It's digging at him in a lot of ways, emotionally probably, to see the success the team's having right now without him. And the conversation that's created is, are they better without KD?
Is the offense better?
Yeah, is the ball moving better? Are they more explosive? Look what Steph and Clay can do without him. And I think just emotionally, I mean, right there, conference-wise, here's the one thing I would say. If he's going to be this sensitive about people talking about his game and questioning him at the level he plays at, don't come to New York. All right, because you know what? You're talking about a situation where the fishbowl you're going to be living in New York is going to be unbearable if you're going to react to every single person that questions who you are and how good you are and your impact on the game.
Although I will say that if he is going to react to people who have 150 followers on Twitter, it almost doesn't matter where he goes. The fishbowl is constant. To me, there is an extraordinary difference between reacting to someone like Chris Broussard, who has a huge platform, and if you believe he's saying things about you that are unfair or inaccurate, trying to correct that, versus, to your point, beefing down or punching down on social media. I think those are two different things. Let me get the rest of the room in on the conversation. Laura, take it from there.
Yeah, let's start there with Bruce and Marcus. And I actually want to start with Marcus here because you've said that you think KD needs his own team. He needs his own squad to sort of lead to a championship. But to their point, if that team is a New York or wherever it is, if he's distracted or upset, obviously, by people with such a small following and just people in general, is that going to work?
Here's the deal. I used to be down on KD for these responses, right? And him talking to people in the media and through Twitter. KD is insecure. Like, based on everything that has transpired with his interaction with fans, the things that seem to bother him, he's insecure. And what people scratch their head about is, why would a guy in this position be insecure about things that people are saying that have nothing to do with his situation? It's because he's never outright owned his own situation. That's why I keep saying KD won't be complete until he takes a team to the finals, because it's all basketball. The things that he gets emotional about is people talking about basketball and how he's reacting, the sensitive. Like, you're sensitive because people think Golden State is better without you? Really? You are. People have said you're the best player in the world.
And he might be.
Yeah. I mean, it's insecurity.
You know, it's a lot of that. But at the same time, as a player, as an athlete, Jalen, Seth, yourself, all the athletes here, and those that are professional in what they do, you understand that you've worked so hard to get to where you are right now. And so it all stems to wanting to be the best you can be, but there's also something inside you that has allowed you to understand that you have not been the best you can be as far as where you started from. And it goes back to OKC. A lot of this is stemming from OKC and that decision to leave and join an already great team, which you allowed to even get better and win 2 MVPs as far as the finals are concerned. So now you already have that. Now you're trying to look to justify that I'm this person. Now, you would have been that person had you stayed and done it with the team that you lost, that you were with in OKC.
Right. So that's interesting because Jalen has said this earlier on the show, and you guys didn't necessarily agree, that he thinks that the Warriors only win if KD comes back. They can only win with him, but you think they can win without him. So if they win without him, how does that affect KD's psyche going forward with all this?
It's going to just bring about what it truly is. Golden State made it easy for KD. They took a step back. You look at what Draymond did, taking a step back. Look at what Clay did, took a step back. 2-time MVP Steph Curry took a step back. Now that he's not on the floor, they're playing the way that they've been capable of playing throughout the whole season. But I'll say this. It's always hard for you to justify something to someone that's not in your shoes. Yeah. Everyone here has been through something where you're trying to justify how hard it is to go through an NFL training camp. But average people don't understand that. So by you trying to go with them, you're never going to convince them to see it your way. So until he gets to a point where he says, you know what, I have to be resound in who I am and not worry about others, he'll be okay.
And you want that for KD, honestly, like just as a fan of the sport. And
I want it so bad for him.
Yeah, you want it for him.
Because it's been bothering him for a long time.
Let's get back to the NFL, Greeny.
Absolutely. We have more news to get to today. We touched on this briefly earlier, but I wanted to make sure we said everything there is to say about it. NFL owners have granted the competition committee the authority to tweak their procedures for reviewing pass interference. The committee could limit reviews to only off-coaches challenges and not booth reviews during the final 2 minutes of each half. Hail Mary plays could be made exempt from challenges. The important point to note here is that the owners have basically given the competition committee the authority to do this as they see fit. And I think this is an enormous moment, and it comes about largely because of the bad call, the egregiously missed call at the end of the NFC Championship game that really changed the course of the NFL's season. So I want to have Jalen in this conversation as well, just on the basic concept of instant replay review and all of that, which I think crosses over different sports boundaries. But Swagoo, I know you were telling us earlier this morning, with everything that can be at stake in every single NFL game, and thus basically every call, you are strongly in favor of
I'm
this.
strongly in favor, and if it prolongs the game, that's just what it is. Because, look, the number one thing that people have to understand is that most guys' livelihoods in the NFL are tied to success, right? And the success of that team, the success of that franchise. Let's take the Saints' particular situation, Jay. An extra game for a practice squad guy was $50,000 if the Saints would have went to the Super Bowl. $50,000 for guys that aren't Drew Brees that's making $25 million. And a blown call costs you it? Like perception-wise? So these are things that people didn't talk about because it was so focused on the interference call and all of that. The preparation. Like, I wish people would know how a body feels when you're playing in the NFC Championship. How much preparation it takes for you to get ready to play in that game. And to feel like something was stolen from you. To lose a game, you could say, man, the Rams beat us. They made the play. They did that. Before it to be questioned on a pass interference call that was obvious and missed, this needed to be a conversation that approached itself all offseason.
I know it's been modified over the last couple of years, but to me, the mistake that the NFL has always made is they didn't truly invest in their officials. You got guys that are controlling calls for a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate, but yet this is their second and third job. This should be a full-time job for those guys, and then you will take more responsibility for actually getting the call right, and you wouldn't have to lean so much on replay.
You know how much I love you. But I'm tired of hearing that, and I'll tell you why. Because even if they are, in the NBA, they're full-time jobs, and they still miss calls. It happens. The human element exists in this. So
Correct.
I do believe they should have full-time officials. But even if they did, they would make mistakes. The game is very hard to officiate. And if you can correct one, it does not make sense. It does not make logical sense in my mind that you have a correctable mistake and you are choosing not to correct it.
But here's the thing you got to think about in sports, and this is why it's so prevalent in football that you want to make sure it happens. The play always stops when the ball's down.
Right.
In basketball, the play keeps going. That's why when somebody shoots a three, they keep the play going, and then they come back and review it. So for football, it is going to prolong the game, and you do want to get the call right, but it's going to be interesting to see how they balance that, because a lot of people think a big call only happens at the end of the game. There are big calls in the second quarter and third quarter too. So are you going to stop it each time and treat it as it's just as important as the final call?
You just add it to the list of coaches' challenges, so the coaches can now challenge that if they want to. That's all we're changing. They still have the same number of challenges.
So really quickly, I do want to get your opinion on the importance of the fact that the NFL is letting the competition committee look at this, because I like that a lot, and I think it's a good reaction to what happened last year.
Well, you have to take, like the Rams owner wouldn't want it to be looked at, right? So you have to take all of the biases out and let a committee that's been formed to get the game right. That, to your point, just get it right. Like, if it's obvious, calls will be missed until the end of time in every professional sport. But these can't happen. It's not only a bad look on the game in particular, it's a bad look on the league.
Yes.
That's different.
I've done everything I can this morning to stay away from the Jets, but we must go there. Staying in the NFL. It has been 8 days since the Jets fired their general manager, Mike Maccagnan, and installed head coach Adam Gase into the interim GM role. The Jets will finish up their first set of OTAs today. Adam Gase is expected to speak to the media for the first time since Mike Maccagnan's firing, and our Diana Rossini will be there at Jets camp to cover all of that. And so, Diana, I have a million questions, but I will start with this one. Where do the Jets stand in their search for a new GM?
You know, Greeny, I had a dream last night that I was standing here in Florham Park and giving you good news. I don't have any, though. It's been 8 days since the firing of Mike Maccagnan, and Adam Gase, the interim GM and head coach of the New York Jets, is actually going to take questions from the media for the first time today in just about 45 minutes. And here's what I've learned so far over the last few days in terms of the search. This is not going to be an arranged marriage. This isn't going to be the owner stepping in, picking a guy he wants. This is going to be a decision made with a large influence of head coach Adam Gase. There's no search firm, there's no consultant. The New York Jets, they will decide where they want to go. In terms of a name that is being heard inside the building, it's Eagles VP, head of personnel and scouts, Joe Douglas. And I spoke with a source with Philadelphia this morning about it, and he said, look, we've heard about the reports there in New York that they want to take Douglas as the GM, but as of right now, we've been told nothing. So the search continues, and we'll hear from Gase in just a few minutes.
Yeah, and I have just about 30 seconds, but what's the first question to him today? What if you get the first question, and what are you asking him?
I'm asking him what is going to be his role and what he's looking for in a GM here. And hopefully the answer will be something where he can be the coach and the GM will run the roster and take care of all the personnel issues, because we know that Adam Gase was hired here to develop Sam Darnold.
Right, exactly. And of course, they had someone in place to do that, Mike Maccagnan, and they let him spend $125 million in free agency, hire the coach, and then run the draft, and then they fired him. So we'll see if they get that right. Diana, thank you very much.
I would also like to know where Le'Veon Bell is, too. Le'Veon Bell, that's my other question for him.
I think a lot of fans would like to